When people hear of biotechnology, they usually think in terms of genetic engineering, genetic modification. Now, we know why, we're told why we need to genetically modify the world, to modify God's creation, is so that we can avoid this. Bring on green revolutions, isn't that what they call it? Well, the truth of the matter is, it's all about the money. We take and tweak one gene in a plant so we can own it. We patent it, we own it. I should have brought the other newspaper from a week ago. It had a farmer holding a handful of soybeans on the front page of the business section. 91% of the farmers in the US of A grow genetically modified soybeans.
How many?
91% of the farmers. So that means 99.9% of the food, because it's the large farmers that use this product. And they are owned by the corporate. These people from Monsanto and Syngenta, they are the Bilderberg people. They are the Club of Rome, the Trilateralists, the Council on Foreign Relations. Those are those people. And now they have the real weapon they've been wanting for a long time, food. They have to identify everything. The Ontario Farmer is a very, it's the main newspaper for farmers in Ontario, it comes out of London. And the May 20th issue on the C-section front page story about On Trace. $10 million grant to one of these public-private partnerships, NGOs, to identify, they call it a premises registry. We drive down the road, we see numbers on the road that come out with the county 10 years ago. You know that that's a global positioned address. And this registry that's going in agriculture today is for an emergency risk management system globally. And they're touting it as the solution to any food where somebody gets sick. They say that this registry, when they're done, will track every spoonful of food back to the farm that came off. That's another lie. The truth is, they intend to track every time that food changes hand. They're going to track every transaction. It's the same like livestock. You've heard of the BSE? You know, okay, BSE, we got to identify all these cattle. We have a national identification system here in Canada, and they're coming up with one in the States called the National Animal Information System, NACE. They're identifying all this livestock, and they've turned Canada into a feedlot for Cargill and Tyson. And that's a fact. You try to sell a beast without that tag, and it's a $500 fine for openers. It's hard to believe that just 25 short years ago, I could go into a bank with a check, cash that check, no questions asked, $100,000. Today, they won't even let you cash a check unless you have an account. In fact, they're trying to get rid of checks. And this is how they're getting rid of checks. This is how they're getting rid of your purse and your wallet. Another thing that it's taken me a while to come to realize is that the whole concept of identification and the move to a corporate world. It's either we rein in the corporations or they're going to corporatize us. Very few people, I ask, know where their identification is. It's become a habit. I ask people if they know where their identification is. And I mean, this is not a trick question. This is a deadly serious question. And I would suggest very few people do. Somebody want to take a shot at it, other than somebody that already knows. Every time I get an answer, the answer is, well, here, do you want to see my driver's license? Or do you want to see my this or that? And that's very tragic, because the problem is, and the scripture warns us, it's important that you know who you are. Okay? The fact of the matter is that dollars in your personal wallet is not, none of it's yours. All that identification is the property of the issuer, extended to you as a privilege, as long as you adhere to the rule book that has grown exponentially in the last few short years. The truth of the matter is that our grandfathers did business. They identified who they did business with by recognizing a person, cautious with them until they got to know them, because our identification goes way beyond just our physical features. It goes to our character. It goes to how we've grown and matured through our lifetime. And if we've grown in keeping with a few precepts scripturally, the world generally had performed reasonably well. So they started out, somebody understood the importance of identification, because all private information with individuals goes through identification. And in my grandfather's day, that private information that he put into his wallet, took home into his filing cabinet, in a free society was protected. That required a search warrant for access. And so all that private information, which is power, rested in the individual. Just a side note, we've all, I think, likely heard of the hunting, the agricultural, the industrial, and now the information age. Well, you see, in the hunting age, it was the well-to-do society were the hunters. Agricultural age, it was the agriculturalists that were kind of the cream of the crop, and then the industrial age likewise. And we're talking about economics here. We're talking about the financial well-being in that society gravitated to the industrials in the industrial age. Today, now we've entered the information age, and the economic power now gravitates to those with the information. And we unwittingly, increasingly, are joining their electronic system where we have no more information. It's all data-based, and multi-billions of dollars are being spent coordinating that information down to the smallest living thing. I touched on genetic engineering, and the purpose of that is to displace God's creation, which is free to every man. Now you have a tree or you have something on your property that's been patented by a company, and you haven't gone through the right channels, you will pay heavy fines. So there's another arm of biometrics, or biotechnology, that really never got, it was kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody saw this. Apparently, the Pope, now I'm not of the Catholic persuasion, but the Pope came out in 2008 with 7 modern sins. We got the 10 Commandments from Moses. This was in Toronto Star, March 11th, 2008. We got the 10 Commandments here from Moses, and then in 590 to 604, Pope Gregory came out with the 7 deadly sins. Okay? Now we got 7 modern sins to add to it. And apparently, it says here, we couldn't violate any of these modern day sins without modern day technology. So these people know what they're doing. They're working off scripture. They've got it in high gear. And they have us sinning overtime. Because they know once you start sinning, they got God on their side. And it's happening. This here is Charles Heston, who passed away. By the way, I see Jesse Helm in this movie. He passed away here in the newspaper, I noticed today or yesterday. But anyway, thou shalt not pollute or clone. But I noticed that the Pope, I didn't see